Welcome to Metaphysics and My Perspective. Today we're going to be talking about Pluto Retrograde. Now, Pluto Retrograde, it's a whole lot different from Mercury or any other retrogrades because it has a different frequency and or vibration and governs the sign of Scorpio. Also, it has a direct effect and governs the 8th house in astrology. Now, the 8th house is all about death and rebirth. So whenever you have, like, for example, when it comes to the 8th house in astrology, the 8th house, you can actually look at that house and see what sign or what planets or whatever affects that, and it will give you some idea on how a person would transition from this life to the next, or how they actually came into this life, because it's all about death and rebirth. So it's like beginning and an end. It also deals with like taxes, inheritances. A lot of people, you will notice a lot of people sometimes they will their date of death will be during November, during Scorpio season, or right at the end of that. And see, my dad, for example, he died on November 5th. So I remember when that happened, there was a lot of like crows and signs of death, and just, it was gloomy. I mean, it reminded you of death, And so it's amazing how the symbolism and everything is affected by the energy of this planet. Now, in Greek mythology, Pluto is known as Hades, and also the underworld. So Hades, hell. So, it's a representation of darkness, and it deals with the psyche. So, for example, if you would want to know how Pluto retrograde might affect you, I'm only basically going to tell you how it would affect you collectively, because spending all the time and energy to go into everybody's, to go into a chart or look at every sign and tell you how this is going to affect you, because it would be kind of useless in a way. I mean, it would be helpful, but it would be useless simply because the time frame in which Pluto transitions or orbits the sun is a very, very long time. And an example of this is that Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. Now, when you think about Pluto being the destructor, and you think about it being death and rebirth, and the underworld and Hades, picture that, for example, in Capricorn. Now think about everything that Capricorn rules and governs. It rules time. It's the lord of Saturn basically is the ruler of Capricorn, but it rules time. It has everything to do with like restriction. If you've ever met very many Capricorns in your life, you might notice that they're always trying to beat time. They're either trying to beat it or they have control over it. It matters so much to them. They don't know how to deal with life in the present sometimes. And so kind of take a look at how the energy of Capricorn and see how that would affect, that's how you would look at it. So another example would be how it might affect certain signs. So say that you know someone that has a Scorpio rising, or you yourself have a Scorpio rising. Alright, so someone with a Scorpio rising would basically have a lot of death and rebirth cycles when it comes to their body. Now, these people could be drug addicts. They could be constantly killing themselves only to revive and look brand new. Picture, if you will, like a snake shedding its skin. So it would be kind of like they might actually come to the brink of death, to the point of dying many different times, and just bam, it could be like almost literal physical death, where they might die and then visit the underworld, kind of like as Egypt calls it, and some of the other cultures call it, and then come back and have some type of revelating life experience. But the thing with Scorpio and Pluto itself is that Scorpio is a fixed sign. So Pluto is one of the rulers of Scorpio, the other is Mars. So when you have Scorpio not, being almost a fixed sign, like barely gradually ever changing, and that's one thing about it, it makes you wonder too, is the fixed quality of Scorpio, is it worse because they're, one of the rulers is actually Pluto, and because it takes so much time to actually revolve around the sun? I mean, it's a question that many I'm sure have tried to answer. But with the being in Capricorn again, you'll have so many different things, and you just need to take more look at it. If you're interested in this at all, and you want to take a look at like Capricorn and Saturn, look at that, and then that would give you an idea on how it might affect you. And then what you would want to do is you would want to look at your chart, and you'd want to see where Pluto is and how it affects you, like what house it's in. Is there any other planets in there? What signs are in that house? You would want to look at that too, because ultimately it's going to affect your 8th house anyway, because it's the ruler of that, or Scorpio is. Depending on how you look at it, to me, when you're speaking of Scorpio and Pluto, you're saying the same thing because they're governed by each other. Even though the Scorpio is ruled also by Mars and it has like 2 rulers, so you could just say that that's the duality of Scorpio, that it has a little bit of both. But basically, Pluto is all about transformation, and it's so funny because you look at a Scorpio, and like I said, it's a fixed sign. So how is it possible for them to actually give the ruler of Pluto, Pluto being the ruler of Scorpio, when it's a fixed sign, and most of them don't even like change. And if you look at a Taurus is opposite is Scorpio. So many Tauruses are fixed signs too, and they don't like change. And a lot of Tauruses that I know have a moon sign that is Scorpio. So you will see a lot of, kind of stuff that doesn't really make any sense. But when it goes retrograde, it's doing the opposite. So if you were born during the retrograde period, you're probably going to feel a little bit of relief. You're probably going to feel a whole lot better. And but I'll tell you another thing that you can watch too. Anytime you have a retrograde in a sign, like for example, this retrograde is going to be Pluto in Capricorn. So what you're going to see is if you're dealing with a direct sign, say that you know a lot of Scorpios, you're either going to watch a lot of Capricorns go through a transformation, depending on where the placement is in their sign. If it's the sun, Capricorn, or if it's the moon, you're going to watch a lot of them come in and out of your life. Or it's like it's the same way the way it is with Mercury. I don't think a lot of astrologers look at it like that. If you know the signs of the people that are around you, depending on where the retrograde is and what sign it's in, you're going to see more of that. So an example would be you might have a reconnect with someone that has Scorpio in their charts, either moon or sun or rising, which I did. I had somebody come back this time around right before Mercury went pre-shadow. So it wasn't really the influence of Mercury, it was the fact that this person is a Scorpio rising. So it's amazing how much this stuff governs people, and how much that they're walking around like totally oblivious to all this, especially the ones that think they know better and are walking around like, oh, astrology's bullshit, well, you don't know what the hell you're talking about. So you just have to kind of look and understand the signs. And I know I'm going all over the place with this with these examples, but Mercury is in retrograde, so I'm really having trouble speaking to you about this. But I just wanted to give a little bit of insight in regards to this planet. And I'm trying to think of some other things that would make you understand. Also, something else too. Another example would be, say that your boss is a Capricorn, or the company itself is owned by a Capricorn. Well, the company might go under, or it might go through a death and rebirth process. It could be a Capricorn in your life that goes through a death and rebirth process. It could be all the clocks that's governed by Saturn and Capricorn. They could be messing up. You might have to get new clocks. It could be scales. It could be anything. It could be something finally coming through. There's just so many different things that can govern. And so when you're looking at astrology, you want to look at it with a little more, treat it with a little more respect than some people do. And whatever these astrologers tell you, it's going direct or it's going retrograde right now, everything is a process. And I will continue to say this in all my retrograde videos. Nothing ever just happens in life. Everything has a process of elimination, process of beginning. So if you really wanted to get technical about it, Pluto kind of always stays in the retrograde. I mean, they say it appears to move backwards and they give you this time frame of when this happens, but to me it's infinite. It's always doing something, because with the rotation of Pluto around the sun, and how long it stays in these signs, I mean, I would say the retrograde stays in much longer than these little dates that they give it. Because how do they ever know that, if it's moving in and out? Because it's always in one or the other. It's always going to be in pre-shadow, or it's always going to be in post-shadow, or it's always going to be in retrograde. When does it ever turn direct? Really, it doesn't matter. Like they say that it's going to be in retrograde, since from April 29th to October 8th. Well, how is that possible? Because you're not leaving any room for a pre-shadow or a post-shadow. And with the orbit and the spin being so slow in regards to the orbit around the sun, how would it ever, get back to where it was supposed to be? And I think people don't really think about that. They act like that it's either too technical or they don't even consider it. And if you get your astrological information off of Facebook on memes, you don't know. Most of that stuff isn't correct. Especially when you've got someone that puts a retrograde, say they put Pluto retrograde, and they give you a list of things that you might experience. That is very limited in what they're putting, and you really need to explore the houses of your chart and your own personal. Even though it's a collective retrograde, it's going to affect everybody, and it's going to take a long time. Like an example is, because the orbit is so long and it takes so long for that the way that the death and rebirth process would be for you, it's not going to be like Mercury where it's going to be fast. It's gonna take a while, and it could be a transition that lasts many, many years. So when it's in retrograde, just don't even look at it like it's happening right now, because there's just so many things that factor into it. It can be very confusing. And I'm sure a lot of people will probably click off this video before I even get started, just because it seems like I'm going in circles. But it's very hard to explain that to you while putting all the factors into it. So anyway, that has been my perspective on Pluto retrograde. I hope it was helpful. I hope you got some type of information from that. Let me know what you think. Let me know your insights, any astrologers, anything like that see this video. And, that's been my perspective. Thank you.